What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with me, Tyson the Trainer. So, today's video, I want to talk to you guys about periodizing your nutrition around your training, right? Because, as an athlete, you are someone who's going to be continuously changing up your training for the most part. If you're a runner, your volume is going to get more intense and then it's going to taper back off. If you're a boxer, there are going to be times where you're getting hard for training, going into your boxing camp, doing all these certain things, and then, tapering back off. And this is why it's basically what we do in every sport. There's a time where obviously we go hard and we ramp up slowly, and then we have to have that point where we have a rest, a deload, any of those things that are going to come up in our training, because that's what's actually going to help us super compensate and be able to continuously keep making progress as an athlete. You can't always be redlining an engine, otherwise you will fucking blow up eventually, or an injury will happen, you'll get sick, something will cause you to slow down or to have to stop for a certain period of time. And so that's why we want to kind of make sure as an athlete for yourself you do have a coach who's teaching you how to train properly, whether, and this isn't just regarding weight training, as I say, training properly, anything, if you're a runner, you want to make sure you know how to program either for yourself or someone to program for you properly to be able to build up to where you want to go. If you want to be able to run a marathon in a certain amount of time, having someone who can teach you how to do that, proper running strides, obviously time on the ground, all these type of things when you're running is going to be a factor for you. Performance during your running, building up to that certain amount of speed. If you're a cyclist, the same thing. You can't just go from 0 to 100 and think you're going to ride in the fucking Tour de France or anything like that. And so, as an athlete, as someone who is going to be, especially if this is something that you very much enjoy and you want to get the best out of it, if you do want to be the top of your class, then making sure you take the time to learn about your sport, to understand the biomechanics of your sport, or have someone who does understand the biomechanics of the sport, and then also the nutritional component, because if you find a coach who can, handle both of those things, you are going to be able to just beat so many people, because a lot of people who are athletes, I can include this in myself. I'm a recreational athlete, I can run a decent 5K pace, I can run at 18 minutes, but I'm not a great runner. I'm actually getting someone teaching me how to run properly at the moment. And so I'm not going to be serious and go for a marathon run or anything like that, but I want to run better, So I hire someone to actually help me teach that. But at the same time, it's not going to be my professional sport, right? I could just always stick to the 18-minute run and I could potentially get better, but I don't have the time to look into all these things, which is why I hired a coach instead. So if you have the time and you can look into it, you are doing your research and stuff like that, all the power to you. I'm very happy that you can do that. But for a large majority of people, it's not really a viable option for you to be able to do that. And what you need to make sure you're doing instead is that you're going to, have someone to be able to teach you these things, but also, with that, having someone teaching you, and I guess these videos are also going to help you on the nutrition side of things, So you've got that person teaching you, whether it be, you're cycling, you're running, whatever it is, the coach who teaches you the exercise or the modality of what you're doing and how to do it better, by having proper training cycles, a macro cycle, a mesocycle, all those type of things to lead you towards where you want to go. So if you're that side of things, then you need to integrate the nutrition, right? Now, the cool thing about being an athlete and having periods of where things get more intense and you're doing hard things is if you're someone like me who likes to understand nutrition to quite an nth degree and getting into the intricacies, you can start to really hone in. How am I trying to think about this here? You can start to really hone in on these important things and work them into your life, because when you can, you've got a running coach, right? You're running normally, you're running a certain amount of time, you get a running coach, he shows you how to run better, he shows you how to, what a proper hip block is, he shows you all these things, and now you're running at 20% better efficiency, So you're not running as hard, as in you're not fatiguing yourself as hard, you're running quicker, so you'll get into the same, you get into that 5K in a quicker time with less effort overall, which means your intensity overall is lower, and you're just improving everything, that is the efficiency of running. And so with that being said, it's okay, now you can push yourself harder, now you can run further. So with that, on the nutrition side of things, when you start to integrate that, you could even improve your performance even more without having to adjust any more biomechanics. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with biomechanics, When you're a good runner or a great runner, you can't become, there's only so much you can do, you can't, time contact on the ground, when we're running, there's a certain amount of contact we want to have on the ground. You can't reduce that to any certain degree to a certain point, once you hit a time where you know what your running time on the ground is, it's gonna be so hard for you just to get that extra 1% less of time on the ground. Basically you'd be floating in fucking air. So it's like, okay, what can we do to actually improve your performance without focusing so much on the biomechanics? And that's where periodizing your nutrition comes in. Okay. So what I like for you guys to think about is when it comes to periodizing nutrition, with using it with how your volume goes in training or your intensity goes, and this is why we always want to wear a heart rate monitor. Like, I would always recommend wear it whenever you can, because the more you have a heart rate monitor on, the more you're actually tracking this, the better you're going to be able to see is like, what happens during the week. Like on a stressful week, how's your heart rate? Are you able to push the intensities as high? Maybe not. On the weeks where you're feeling really good or the intensity is going up, are you actually to push that intensity as high as you're supposed to be going? Or the volume side of things, increasing the volume, burning an extra 1, 2, 3, 400 calories a day because your volume's been gone from 20k to now it's up to a 30k run. Like a 10k distance is a huge amount of difference, right? And you're going to be burning those extra calories, and so we need to make sure we're accounting for those extra things. So the way we periodize our nutrition, like I've talked to you guys about before, calculating your calories using your steps, using your body weight, and then using your calories burned during training, right? Then obviously what your goal is to be weight loss, weight gain, maintaining your weight, whatever it's going to be, we adjust our food around those periods, okay? So now we know how much we're eating. But as the intensity starts to ramp up and the volume and things start to ramp up, you can start to still track your food. And if those things are ramping up and you're burning an extra 1, 2, 400 calories a day, start to periodize that nutrition and start to follow along. This is why I always recommend wearing a heart rate monitor, just to get an idea about how your body goes, because every time that gets a little bit more volume, and it's, again, like if it's an extra 10k's or whatever it's going to be, I'm not expecting you guys to change 10k's over a week, but again, if you were burning, let's say, 600 calories in a run at 20k's, you'd be burning a lot more than 600 calories. But now you're at 30k's and you're burning 900 calories. That's a 300 calorie difference, So you need to make sure you are getting that extra 300 calories in throughout your day. So don't forget, as an athlete, when these things are increasing, start to increase your nutrition, start to increase the calories you need to fuel that performance, because you always want to be in optimal energy availability, really staying at that 45 calories per kilogram of lean body weight, which would be ideal. And then on top of that, making sure, if you're going to be staying on top of that, always doing the calculation. So you may need to be recalculating every few weeks, and it may seem tedious and it may seem annoying, but if you want to perform at your best, you have to make sure you're giving your body the exact fuel it needs for the exact outcome you're trying to get, okay? Because every time you can take a little bit more of a deep dive into your nutrition and start to adjust these things, you can get better results, And again, these aren't going to be amazing results, but like a 2 to 5 to 10% difference can mean from you coming, third place to first place. Literally, like points of a second difference can help. And having that fuel to be able to fuel your training, to be able to get better at your training, to then be able to perform better, is what you want overall, okay? So as you're, increasing volume, whatever you're doing, as that's going up, keep tracking your heart rate, keep looking at your calories, and if your calorie burn starts to go up, you need to play catch up, make sure you are tailing that, Again, if it's like a 50 calorie difference and stuff like that, it's not too important, but if it gets to like within the 150 calories extra that you're burning in those sessions and stuff like that, or just overall, maybe your steps are changing, doing more steps, all these things, that's when you want to start to hone in on that nutrition and match it as you go up, all right? Another really good thing is this with caffeine too. So as you start to increase your volume each week, you can increase that caffeine intake a little bit more. So we've talked about, the ideal recommendation is between 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So if you're a 100 kilo person, it's 300 milligrams, which is the equivalent of 3 shots of coffee, all the way up to 600 milligrams, which is 6 shots of coffee, It can actually go up to 9 milligrams per kilogram. That's a fucking lot, okay? But what you could do, let's say it's a 6-week cycle of you going up. So week 1, you have 2 milligrams per kilogram. Week 2, you have 3 milligrams. Week 3, you have 4 milligrams. Week 4, you have 5 milligrams. Week 5, you have 6 milligrams. Week 6, you have, this is your hardest week, you have 7 milligrams, or whatever it's going to be, to really push, because, the intense, the more volume, the more distance, all those things, you're going to have to try and match that. And so increasing your caffeine intake to match that is also going to help with performance too. And then what you can do, when you have that deload, that rest week, drop your caffeine, keep your calories, take away obviously your training if you're doing no training, or match your calories back to that, so you still are eating in energy balance but not overeating too much, because we want that recovery side of things too. Like in a deload, nutrition is still so important, to get your protein in, to get your actual fuel in, to help you recover, because with our deload periods, or coming off a mesocycle and having that rest time to taper back, this is where we solidify everything. This is super compensation. This is where everything we've been trying to learn and push through in those last few weeks, this is when it all kind of starts clicking together like Lego blocks. So that deload week, that low week is so important for everything. And so it's like we need to be able to fuel the recovery, fuel the adaptions, get all those things, the important stuff on that deload. And then also, tailoring back off from caffeine. Have that week off caffeine, If you're not doing anything hard, take the week off so you can let your body adjust, so you can actually reduce your adenosine receptors. So, because basically what happens when we have caffeine, they connect to adenosine receptors, and the more caffeine we have, the more adenosine receptors that we start to build up, the more adenosine we start to build up in our brain. So instead, you drop that caffeine for a week, you re-tolerate yourself, because it'll drop your tolerance, then you can peak back up. And it's kind of like this ebb and flow cycle to help you get towards where you want to go. And you will notice your performance gets better over time with these small adjustments, And again, they're not going to be anything crazily significant, but between that 1 to 10% differences going forwards is always going to give you that little bit of extra performance on top of other athletes. And if you want to perform at your best and you do want to be at the top of your class, these things are going to be important for you, So really taking the time to think about how can you periodize your nutrition within your training. And usually it's going to be, adjusting your calories up, adjusting your carbohydrates up predominantly when it comes to the more intense and the more volume or distance you're doing, and also the caffeine, and then bringing it back down when you have that time off and that deload to come back down, recover, refuel, just feel better about yourself, reduce your niggles, reduce your chance of injuries, and then get you back into it again. And that's what I would say would be a really good approach for you. So if you have the time, really start mucking around with your heart rate monitors, really start trying to track all this stuff and getting the intricacies, and then start to tailor it towards, based all around you. And again, you don't need a coach to do this. I've explained to you guys how you can do it all, so you can definitely put it all into play so you can make sure that you are periodizing it with all your nutrition. So just a quick video for you guys today. I hope that all makes sense. If you guys have any questions, as always, message me at Tyson the Trainer with 2 R's on Instagram, and I'll speak to you guys in the next episode.